Welcome back, guys. So today I got a pretty interesting one for you. The mini Nintendo 64 kit. Yes, you can build your own Nintendo 64 mini. So this is the OGST game kit. I got mine from Hard Kernel. It is available a few other places for a little bit lower of a price. For me, I paid about 40 bucks, 41 with shipping. And that was from Korea. They actually shipped it to me overnight. I received it in a day. That was kind of crazy to get it in one day. But you can get a little cheaper through Odroid or Amazon. I'll have links in the description if you want to peep it out. But today what we want to do is go ahead and take a look at it, show you how to put it together, look at the little screen in action, because that's a big thing. A lot of people were interested in that little LCD screen. It's got an LCD screen. That's nuts. So I want to showcase that, give you my impressions and my thoughts, pros and cons, all that kind of good stuff. So right off the bat, when I first got this in the mail, my first thought was like, wow, this thing is huge. Compare it to a Pi 3. You can see that thing it's monstrous compared to a Pi 3 in a case. So there is a lot of space inside here, a lot of airflow, a lot of empty space. Just being honest with you, there is a lot of empty space in this case. Part of it has to do with just the way it was designed, having this LCD screen and board with these multiple USBs up front. So that does take up, some real estate going, up and down, vertically and horizontally. It does need some real estate to be in there. So you kind of had to build the case around that. And I get it. It makes sense. Very interesting and neat idea with the implementation of that. So when I received it, I started messing around with it. We'll go ahead and take a look at putting it together. But once you open it up, or you open up the box that it comes in, you get top half, bottom half, all the little pieces you need. You get a little extra cable if you want to attach a disk drive, a hard drive to it and mount it in there internally. Ribbon cable for the screen, the actual screen with the board and USBs. The little power cable to plug everything in to that board and power it up via the Odroid. Little rubber feet, all that good stuff. Pretty simple and easy to put together. The hardest part is mounting the Odroid to the plastic case. I mean, it's not even that big a deal. 4 little tiny screws. I mean, they're not tiny, but they're very little threading on them. So you do have to be careful to not overdo it when you're screwing those in there to mount that bad boy. But once that is all done, screwed in, your cables ran to the front, you have that screen popped in, and there is, a couple places where you will see that it mounts in there and kind of holds it in place. And you go ahead and pop the bottom half, top half together, clip it in place. On the back there are a couple little clips that will hold it in together. And then on the front with the USBs, there are those little little locking nuts, I guess you would call them, that go over that, locks it in place. And then you're good to go. So once you have everything put together, as you can see here, everything is easily accessible. Your power, your micro SD is pretty easy to insert and remove if that's what you're using. The HDMI, little Ethernet cable port. And then on the front, you do have access to 4 USBs, a power button, where is she? And then a programmable button. Pretty cool stuff. So the one thing of note is that this is designed for the OGST image. So that is the Odroid Game Station Turbo. I have not gotten any other image to work properly with this, so be careful and realize at the moment complete compatibility with other images with this case and setup may not be fully functional at this time. The biggest thing is the LCD screen. That's what a lot of people are looking at, like, oh, that's kind of neat. Looking at a little screen that shows little custom images or splash screens for each system. And I thought that was kind of cool too. But like I said, you have to use that OGST image, and it's kind of different. It's a little different. If you're accustomed to just using RetroPie either for the Odroid or Raspberry Pi, the process is a little bit different but familiar. The one thing I do have to say is I have very little experience with OGST, and I don't want to completely knock it, but it's just not as easy to use and easy to set up for me as RetroPie. I've had plenty of, you know, experience with RetroPie on the Raspberry Pi and even the Odroid, messing around with that. So it's kind of tough for me to just completely knock this image, but it is quite a bit more difficult to mess around with and get everything running properly. You do have to do some updates to the system. You do have to install all the stuff for the LCD screen, for the Game Station Turbo stuff to work, to display the little videos and all that good stuff. And that can take a little while upon your initial setup. It's not crazy, it's not rocket science, it's just all a little different than what I'm accustomed to. So I just want people to be aware of that. Not crazy, just different. Takes a little more time getting things set up versus a RetroPie setup, in my opinion. Now, once you have everything good and ready to go, once you boot up a game, you have your ROMs on there, whatever you're doing for multiple systems, you boot up a game, it will show the display of the system, a little splash screen, if you will, for each system. And it does look pretty neat. Does it serve a purpose? No. It doesn't really serve a purpose other than looking neat. The screen is not the highest of quality, but it does a good job of displaying the little tiny splash screens. I think it's neat, rather pointless, but neat. For the price, it's kind of cool that you get all that. But just to be completely honest with you, from messing with the OGST image, I've done 2 fresh installs on 2 different micro SD cards. And I've come across the same problem both times. And that is, once you boot up a game in a particular system and the little splash screen shows up, pretty cool stuff. Once you exit the game, it does take a moment for, at least my setup, for that splash screen to stop playing. It could take almost 30 seconds before it just cuts out. Now, if I don't let it cut out and I just jump into another game in another system, it'll keep bouncing back and forth between the 2 videos. So like Nintendo 64 and NES, for example, it'll just keep bouncing back and forth between them, cutting in and out, and it just looks horrendous. Now, I thought, okay, let me just let the video stop playing and then start my game. Let me wait 30 seconds to a minute, whatever it takes, to load up the next game I want to play. So I would do that, and then not always, but often enough to be really annoying, it would do the same thing even though I let the video stop playing. It would still do that splicing thing where it splices the 2 videos together. Kind of annoying, but like I said in the beginning here, the screen really serves no purpose other than to look pretty. But if it's not looking pretty and cool because it's splicing those videos together, then it's kind of even more so pointless to me. So that kind of frustrated me a little bit. Like I said, it doesn't happen always, but on 2 fresh installs, it's happened to me. And it bothers me a bit, and I just wanted to point that out. Now the other thing, and I have not watched any other reviews on this, so I don't know what other people's impressions are, but once I got this thing, you know, seeing it from afar and seeing it in images online, yeah, it doesn't look exactly like a Nintendo 64, but who cares? It's styled after it, right? But once you really get this thing in your hands and you look at it and you feel it, I'm being honest here, I've had McDonald's Happy Meal toys that feel more quality than this case, and that's sad. I'm not even like really doing anything. You could just hear a little bit of pressure. It feels like this thing's gonna crack and fall apart, and there's a reason for that. So the plastic that you used on this, in all honesty, it's very cheap. It's only a couple millimeters thick. It's not very thick, and it doesn't seem very like high density. Like it's pliable, and that could be partly due to it being so thin. It is kind of transparent as well. You can see through it, especially if you hold it up to light. You could see through it. It is a see-through case. It just doesn't come out on video as such, but it is got that transparency to it. It's just not immediately visible, but if you hold it up to the light, you can see through it, and light does shine through it. So I did want to point that out. It's not a solid color. Mine arrived to me with a lot of little scratches and nicks and imperfections in it. And the one thing I do want to point out, like if you take this case, and I know not everybody's going to do this, but if you're picking it up and you're just putting like a very minor bit of pressure, I mean, you're not really going to see much, but it bulges out. The plastic just bulges out, and the little clips, they're easily opened, and they're very thin. And like I said, this case isn't held together by any screws. And I can already start seeing stress marks on this plastic around the case. Like for example, the power button up in the front, just to me, it's the more it's used, it's going to wind up breaking off. It's going to break off over time. I have that feeling that those buttons, the power and the little additional button, they're going to break off over time. It's bound to happen. Put a little too much pressure picking this up or moving it around, you're going to break those back clips, possibly crack it. This thing just seems like it's going to be prone to cracking, being honest with you. For the price, I mean, it did come with an LCD screen that can only right now be used with OGST. Hopefully in the future that will change. But right now, I'm not really that impressed with this. It's big. I understand why it's big. The screen, neat, but just a gimmick. I'm sure there'll be other uses for it in the future, maybe displaying system information, stuff like that. That could be kind of neat. But overall, just a big gimmick, kind of, you know, harkening on people's nostalgia or desire for Nintendo 64, Nintendo in general, retro gaming in general. But I'm not digging it. Like, the plastic's not lining up perfectly. It feels really cheap, guys, being honest with you. I kind of wish I would have passed on this case, being just real with you. But I bought it, wanted to showcase it to you guys. It's neat, but not for me. Just, I don't like the feel of it. And that's where we're at with it. If you guys are interested, you can peep it out. I'll put the links out there. You know, some people are probably really going to love this. Some people are probably going to agree with me. Some are not going to agree with me. Some people have already said this thing is hideous. But now that I have it in my hands, I kind of regret it. Just with the overall look and feel and quality behind it, it's disappointing. Not even necessarily the OGST thing, you know, which was kind of a pain in the butt getting properly set up and getting the display working. It's just the overall feel's not there for me. So those are my thoughts. It works. It's got good airflow. If you're looking for a case that is huge, takes up a little bit of space, this might be for you. If you want something that looks great, that uses quality components or quality materials as far as the actual housing goes, this is not the one. So there you go, guys. Appreciate you stopping in. Smash that like button, subscribe, do all that stuff. I really do appreciate it. With that said, I will catch y'all next time. Peace out. Bye-bye. Boom.